You know I'm not afraid to say I can do better. I am sorry that my message was in the heat of the moment, because when I initially spoke on the topic, it really came from a place of care. I totally recognize that it may have impacted fans in a way that I did not intend, and I am sorry.
This is the moment that we've been waiting for in women's basketball. It's way bigger than that. This is the moment that we've been waiting for.
Kelsey Mitchell just torched an ESPN reporter on live television, and the internet cannot stop talking about it. The Indiana Fever star completely demolished the narrative that ESPN has been pushing for months about her team and Caitlin Clark. What started as typical sports show banter quickly turned into the most uncomfortable television moment of the year. The whole thing went down during a recent ESPN program when the hosts thought they could take some cheap shots at Mitchell and the Fever. Chain and Aguimate were grinning like they just told the funniest joke in the world.
Start with you, Kels, because Lord Jesus, your team and their fans,
Jesus,
they be getting up in everybody's business.
Expecting Mitchell to play along with their little game, they figured she would smile, laugh it off, and move on to the next topic. Boy, were they wrong. Mitchell stared straight ahead with stone-cold seriousness and delivered a response that made the entire studio go silent. She refused to give them the reaction they wanted. Instead of playing the good sport, she called out exactly what was happening. The ESPN host had just made a comment about her team and their fans that crossed the line from playful teasing into disrespectful territory. But here's where things got really interesting. Mitchell did not back down for a single second. She looked directly at the camera and said something that completely shattered the carefully crafted story that ESPN has been telling about women's basketball.
Seeing both sides of it, from one, like being on a team with like Caitlin and knowing that some of the stuff and the wave that she created for like the shifting moments in Indiana period, as far as like the arena.
She told the truth that nobody else in the media wanted to admit. The comment that broke everything was when Mitchell stated that Caitlin Clark has everything to do with the rise of women's basketball. The room went dead silent. You could practically hear the producers scrambling behind the cameras because that statement just destroyed months of narrative building. ESPN and other major networks have been pushing this idea that the WNBA's success is not about any single player. They keep saying it takes a whole league to create change. They have been trying to spread the credit around to protect their traditional storylines and keep control of the conversation. Not only that, but former players turned commentators have been repeating this same talking point over and over again.
Team with like Caitlin, the big moment is seeing the shift and being a part of it from a standpoint that I know where Indiana was, and so to see the cultivation of it, you just grow to appreciate the process and, you know, the growth.
They keep insisting that no one person deserves credit for the explosion in popularity. The whole media machine has been working overtime to make sure Clark does not get too much recognition. Mitchell completely ripped that script to pieces on live television. She did not need to raise her voice or get dramatic. She simply told the truth, and that truth hit harder than any highlight reel ever could.
Congratulations, Eastern Conference Player of the Week.
The fact that this was not just praise but a direct challenge to the established narrative probably made everyone in that studio freeze up. The ESPN hosts clearly were not expecting Mitchell to go off script. They thought they could control the conversation and steer it toward their preferred talking point.
Before, like, she's just been a voice that's been there. She's been through this league for what, 7 years now. Like, she knows what to expect. She knows how things are gonna go. And I think more than anything, like, we are just starting to understand each other much better. Like, we could just make eye contact and she knows to go back door. She knows to come and get the ball. Like, that just comes with playing with one another. So it's been a lot of fun for me. I mean, she's playing so well right now, just as good as anybody in this league. So I feel very lucky and fortunate.
Instead, they got a reality check from someone who has been watching this whole situation unfold from the inside. Let's take a moment to rewind and understand exactly why Kelsey Mitchell has the credibility to destroy ESPN's narrative. This woman has been grinding in Indiana for 7 brutal seasons, and her journey to this moment is absolutely wild. Mitchell did not just show up yesterday and start talking tough. She has been carrying the Indiana Fever on her back since 2017, through some of the most painful years in franchise history. While other stars were jumping ship to chase championships in Las Vegas or Los Angeles, Mitchell stayed put and dealt with whatever Indiana threw at her. The Fever were basically the laughingstock of the WNBA for most of Mitchell's career. They had bottom-tier records, half-empty arenas, and zero national attention. Mitchell was putting up solid numbers in complete obscurity, playing her heart out for a team that nobody cared about. She could have demanded a trade or forced her way out, but she stayed loyal. But the real test of her character came in 2023. Right before the season started, Mitchell lost her father. This was not just any regular season either. This was supposed to be a year where the Fever might finally turn things around. Instead, Mitchell had to deal with the worst kind of personal tragedy while still showing up to play professional basketball. Most players would have taken time off or struggled to perform under those circumstances. Mitchell never complained once. She bottled up her grief and kept grinding, carrying a team that was still finding its identity. She played through the pain both on and off the court, showing the kind of mental toughness that you cannot fake.
Just felt scared because out for a while, my legs weren't, so numb and so paralyzed, so to speak, that I couldn't feel my feet. So I just think resetting, getting my bloodstream back flowing, to be able to and I think it just happened over usage, man. I think to answer your question, I think it was just, for one, if I'm honest, I never played that long. I never made it to a postseason. And then I just think, being there and being present for my team, I kind of never thought about anything like Rhabdo.
Here's the twist that makes her ESPN takedown even more powerful. Mitchell has been watching the media ignore her contributions for years. She has seen reporters focus on everything except the fact that she was keeping Indiana basketball alive during the dark years. She earned her right to speak truth to power through pure suffering. The media tried to paint her as a sidekick when Caitlin Clark arrived, as if Mitchell had not been the face of this franchise for almost a decade. They acted like she was some role player who got lucky to be playing with a superstar. That narrative was completely disrespectful to everything Mitchell had built in Indiana. Mitchell knows exactly where this team was before Clark showed up because she lived through every embarrassing loss and empty arena. She understands the difference between then and now better than any reporter or commentator ever could. When she speaks about the transformation, it comes from real experience, not media talking points. Not only that, but Mitchell has seen both sides of the WNBA machine. She knows what it feels like to be ignored when your team is struggling and how quickly the attention shifts when success arrives. Her perspective on the Clark situation comes from someone who has been through the entire cycle. Yeah, but here's what really gets under the media's skin about Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA. She did not follow their playbook for building a women's basketball superstar, and that has completely thrown off their entire system. Clark burst onto the scene and immediately started breaking records that nobody thought were possible in women's basketball. Her jersey sales went through the roof before she even played a single professional game. Nike threw a $28 million contract at her, which was absolutely unheard of for a WNBA rookie. Arenas that used to be half empty were suddenly selling out whenever Indiana came to town. The viewership numbers tell the whole story. Games featuring Clark were pulling in ratings that made ESPN executives do double takes. We are talking about audiences that were sometimes triple what the league normally gets. Suddenly, people who had never watched women's basketball in their lives were tuning in to see what all the fuss was about. What happened next was even more shocking. Instead of celebrating this massive boost in popularity, the established media gatekeepers started getting nervous. They realized that Clark's success was exposing just how much potential the league had been wasting for years. If one player could generate this much excitement, what did that say about their previous efforts to promote the sport? Former players who are now working as commentators started throwing shade at Clark almost immediately. They kept insisting that basketball is a team sport and that no single player deserves credit for the league's growth. These are the same people who had been begging for a superstar to save women's basketball, and when they finally got one, they tried to tear her down. ESPN made a deliberate choice to spread the attention around instead of capitalizing on Clark's momentum. They could have built entire programming blocks around her games and storylines. Instead, they kept pushing this narrative that the league's success was about everyone except the person who was actually bringing in the viewers. The truth is crystal clear when you look at the attendance figures and TV ratings. Games without Clark were still drawing the same small audiences they always had. Games with Clark were breaking records left and right. The correlation was so obvious that trying to deny it made the media look completely out of touch. Clark was not asking for all this attention either. She just showed up and played basketball at an elite level. The fans responded naturally to her skill and personality. The media manufactured drama by trying to downplay her impact instead of embracing what was clearly working. Here's the kicker that makes the whole situation even more ridiculous. Clark brought in fans from every demographic imaginable. Older men who had never cared about women's sports were suddenly buying tickets. Young girls were getting inspired to pick up basketballs. The growth was organic and real, not some artificial media creation. The league's gatekeepers were scared because Clark's success proved they had been doing things wrong for decades. She showed that women's basketball could be a major draw if marketed properly. That revelation threatened their jobs and their credibility, so they fought back against the very thing that was saving their sport. Let's dig into something truly remarkable about what makes the Mitchell-Clark partnership so dangerous to the old guard. These two players complement each other in ways that completely break the traditional WNBA mold, and that has everyone in power absolutely terrified. Mitchell is a pure scorer who can drop 25 points on any given night. She has perfected the art of getting buckets in every possible way. Clark, on the other hand, is a playmaker who sees the court like a chess master. She can thread passes through impossible spaces and create scoring opportunities out of thin air. On paper, these skill sets should clash, but in reality, they make each other unstoppable. The chemistry between them is almost supernatural. Clark will make eye contact with Mitchell, and suddenly Mitchell is cutting back door for an easy basket. Mitchell will demand the ball in the post, and Clark knows exactly when to deliver the perfect pass. They have developed this silent communication that drives opposing teams absolutely crazy, but the league wanted something completely different. The WNBA has been obsessed with manufactured rivalries and fake drama for years. They want players beefing with each other on social media. They want controversy and conflict because they think that sells tickets. Mitchell and Clark just show up, dominate games, and go home. No ego clashes, no locker room drama, just elite basketball. This approach makes the traditional sports media lose their minds because they do not know how to cover it. They are used to creating storylines about tension between star players. When two superstars actually get along and make each other better, it ruins their entire playbook for generating content. Mitchell stepped up in the biggest way possible when Clark was struggling early in her rookie season. Instead of letting the media create division between them, Mitchell became Clark's biggest supporter. She took pressure off the rookie by shouldering more of the scoring load during tough stretches. Not only that, but Clark returned the favor by setting Mitchell up for career-defining moments. When Mitchell needed the spotlight, Clark made sure she got the ball in positions to succeed. This mutual respect completely destroyed the media narrative about ego problems and jealousy between established stars and rookies. Here's where things get really interesting. The partnership works so well because both players understand their roles perfectly. Mitchell is not threatened by Clark's attention because she knows her own value. Clark respects Mitchell's experience and does not try to take over everything. This maturity level is rare in professional sports. Opposing teams have no idea how to defend them because traditional game plans do not work. If you focus on stopping Clark's passing, Mitchell will cook you with her scoring. If you concentrate on limiting Mitchell's shots, Clark will pick you apart with assists and her own offensive capabilities. They have created a two-headed monster that gives defensive coordinators nightmares. The scariest part for the rest of the league is that this partnership is just getting started. They are still learning each other's tendencies and finding new ways to collaborate. As their chemistry continues to develop, they are going to become even more unstoppable than they already are. What we're witnessing right now is nothing short of a complete power shift in women's basketball, and the old establishment is fighting tooth and nail to stop it. The Indiana Fever have gone from being the league's biggest joke to its most feared team, and that transformation is sending shockwaves through every front office in the WNBA. The numbers tell the whole story about this revolution. Indiana went from playing in front of crowds that you could count on your fingers to selling out arenas across the country. Their merchandise sales exploded overnight. Television networks that used to ignore women's basketball are now scrambling to get broadcasting rights for Fever games. This success is exposing some uncomfortable truths about how the league has been run for decades. If two players could create this much excitement and revenue, what does that say about the management decisions that kept the sport in obscurity for so long? Suddenly, executives who thought they knew everything about marketing women's basketball are looking completely clueless. But here's the most important part of this entire situation. Mitchell's willingness to speak truth on national television represents something much bigger than basketball. She showed that players do not have to go along with media narratives that do not match reality. She proved that authenticity beats corporate messaging every single time. The ripple effects of her ESPN moment are already spreading throughout the league. Other players are starting to speak more honestly about what is really happening in women's basketball. The fake unity and forced storylines that the media loves are getting called out by people who actually live this sport every day. Clark and Mitchell are not just changing games on the court, they are changing the entire conversation about women's sports. They have proven that fans will show up for elite talent and genuine personalities. They do not need manufactured drama or artificial controversies to sell tickets. The future is crystal clear when you look at what these two have accomplished in just one season together. They have created a blueprint for success that other teams are already trying to copy. The problem is that you cannot fake the chemistry and mutual respect that makes their partnership work. Let's be completely honest about what this means for the next few years. The Indiana Fever are going to be the measuring stick for every other team in the league. Players around the WNBA are going to have to decide whether they want to chase individual glory or build something lasting, like what is happening in Indianapolis. The media gatekeepers who tried to control the narrative are going to have to adapt or become irrelevant. Fans have tasted what real excitement looks like in women's basketball, and they are not going back to the boring corporate-approved storylines that dominated the sport for decades. Mitchell destroyed that ESPN reporter because she understood the moment perfectly. She knew that staying silent would mean accepting a false narrative about her sport and her teammate. Instead, she chose to tell the truth, and that truth is going to reshape women's basketball forever. This is not just about basketball anymore. This is about what happens when authentic talent meets genuine opportunity. Clark and Mitchell have shown the world what the WNBA can become when it stops limiting itself and starts embracing its brightest stars. If you are enjoying this content and want to see more breakdowns of what is really happening in women's basketball, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more truth about the sports world.